Welcome back to another episode of the Liberated Woman podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Every time that you listen to an episode of this podcast and like it and share it on your Instagram stories or your Facebook stories or anywhere on your social media or with your friends that you think would really enjoy this type of podcast for women on their path to liberation, to sovereignty, and to ancestral healing, then it means the world to me when you share that so that other women on this path can access this kind of wisdom and not feel so alone on their journey. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. So, for those of you that listened to the episode last week, I was sharing a little bit about our journey here in Guatemala. I was sharing about some of the initiations that I've been experiencing here in Guatemala, some of the spiritual awakenings that have been happening, and also some of the spiritual discernment that is really, really needed when you're in certain communities, in certain places, and on your path to ancestral liberation. For those of you that are new to this podcast, welcome. My name is Shani. I'm an ancestral healer, rebirthing breathwork facilitator, light language channel, oracle, seer, mystic, and priestess. And it is my pleasure in life, my absolute mission, my absolute joy to support women who are on their path to liberation, on their path to sovereignty, on their path to reclaiming a new story for themselves that is not part of what is passed down to you through your ancestry, through your lineage, that you are carrying at a cellular level in your body, in your DNA, which may be causing you to stay in some suffering, maybe causing you to hold back on certain things in your life, maybe causing you not to be in the full essence of who you truly know you could be once these stories and these layers and these debts have been removed from your system and alchemized and dissipated so that you can step into your full aliveness, your full liberation, your full sensuality, your full eros, your fullness, your wholeness of you as a human being on this earth at this time. So, going back to last week's episode, when I was sharing about spiritual sovereignty, spiritual discernment, how to connect with these things when you are on a path to liberation, when you are on a path to finding yourself, as you navigate your way through this journey, one of the things that's really, really important is having spiritual discernment and spiritual sovereignty. And if you haven't gone to listen to that podcast episode from last week, I really recommend that you go back and you have a listen, because it was going to give you a lot of context for what I'm about to share in today's episode. So I titled today's episode spiritual sovereignty and how to work with spiritual superficiality. Okay, how to know when you're in a superficially spiritual community, a community that is like just really surface level and not really necessarily actually helping your evolution and your growth in the way that you might need when you are on this journey. Because trust me, when you are on a journey to liberation, when you are on a journey to sovereignty, you are going to need the right people around you who are going to support you in this journey, who are going to hold you in this journey, who are going to grow with you on this journey, who are going to understand where you are at each stage of your journey. And in fact, I have a whole podcast episode on the types of communities that you might start to connect with as you are going through this kind of liberation journey, as you are going through a spiritual awakening. So go back and check that podcast episode. It's one of my very first episodes that I ever recorded on the Liberated Woman podcast. So why am I talking about this subject today? It's something that really irks me and something that I've got a lot of lived experience with, especially in this past year as I've been on my travels in Central America. So for the last 4 months, we've been in Guatemala, in specifically at Lake Atitlan, and specifically in Lake Atitlan in a little town called San Marcos. There's many little towns around this giant lake that was a crater surrounded by active volcanoes. There's San Marcos, San Pedro, San Juan, all the saints, St. John, St. Peter, St. Paul, St. Mark, St. Luke, all of the different saints. And it's named that way. It's not the original Mayan Quetzal, which is their language. It's not the original Mayan names. These are names that the Spanish who colonized this area gave when they tried to convert the Mayans into Catholicism and Christianity. And so we've been in a specific place called San Marcos. And you might have looked at my Instagram stories and thought, wow, the lake looks so beautiful and it's so epic. And look at those volcanoes and the nature and the jungle. And yes, on the one hand, it has this beauty, it has this depth of ancient wisdom and ancient culture. But within that lies a lot of darkness and spiritual superficiality. What do I mean by this? So I explained in my last episode that when we first arrived in San Marcos, I instantly, as an oracle, as a seer, started to tune into the energy of the land here, started to tune into the energy and the spirits that were living in the lake. And instantly, they recognized me as someone who could come here and do very powerful grid work on this land, someone who could come and change the energy up of this land. And they did not like it. So they shut down my channel and they spiritually attacked me. Now, anybody who has that depth of spiritual wisdom, anybody who has that depth of spiritual discernment can easily see beyond the veil, beyond this mesh, this illusion that is very, very present here in San Marcos. San Marcos has attracted a huge number of quote unquote spiritual people. It's like a vortex, a little goldfish bowl, they call it, because it really is like the lake is surrounded by volcanoes. It almost feels like you're living in a goldfish bowl. There really isn't anywhere to go other than in a tuk-tuk to the next little town or across the lake in a boat. It's very difficult to get out of here unless you have some kind of mode of transport. And even then it's going to take you a long time to get out of Lake Atitlan into the next city along. And so, as I said, when I first got here, I instantly felt that darkness, the murkiness that lives underneath the lake. And there's a reason why people are called to be here, particularly in San Marcos. There's a reason why people return here again and again and again. The lake has a very enticing energy, almost like a sirenita, a siren energy. And a siren was like a water mermaid or a water nymph that would lure sailors in and then drown them into the depths of the murky waters. And the lake has that energy here. Layered with that energy is a very ancient Mayan culture, very ancient Mayan culture. You will see when you walk around San Marcos, around the lake in general, that the Guatemalans the women especially, are still very much dressed in their indigenous clothing. They take pride in the way that they dress in their indigenous ways. However, there is a huge disconnect between the Mayan culture and the Westerners that come here to find themselves and find their spirituality and have the most hedonistic time of their lives. Living in San Marcos is like permanently living at a festival. There are events at every minute of the day, every single day. There is never a moment where an event isn't on. And you've got everything you could possibly want, from acro yoga to contact improvisation to ecstatic dance to drum circles to saunas to yoga to Pilates to voice activations to singing circles to kirtans. You name it, it exists here. But are any of those things facilitated by Mayans? Absolutely not. Every single workshop that I've seen advertised here is facilitated by Westerners. Now, you could argue that there is nothing wrong with that. Of course, I'm a facilitator myself, and my partner and I have put offerings on here. He's been facilitating Kambo ceremonies and bodywork. We've been facilitating breathwork journeys here, ancestral healing journeys. However, there is something that is very incongruent between the Westerners that land here, trying to find themselves, search themselves, paying extortionate prices to go to events, run by Westerners that a local Mayan person here could never even think about affording. And we've been here for 4 months now, and partly it's because I knew that there were lessons or blessings, as I like to call them, lessons as blessings. There were blessings that I knew the lake had to teach me because there was so much resistance to me being here. As I told you, instantly shut down in my channel, instantly shut down in my oracle. However, what I've noticed around this lake is the superficiality that lives within the community here. So they call it a big community here amongst the Westerners. They say it's a beautiful community, a big community. And individually, on individual levels, there are beautiful people here doing incredible work. Some people are doing really incredible work here, and they are connecting that with the Mayans here. They're connecting that with the culture here, and they're trying to support the local economy. They're trying to support the local community. They're volunteering and they're creating charities and things to help the local community. However, there is an extraordinary amount of superficiality here. When I say that, I mean that in 4 months of being here, I found it extremely difficult to get intimate or have any depth of conversation with anybody. You walk down the street, you recognize everybody. Hi, hi, hi. How are you? How are you? Yeah, how's it going? Yeah, this. And everybody is just in their own vortex of trying to make it work, trying to hustle, trying to put on their offerings, trying to make money, trying to go to events, trying to get people to come to their events, that there's very little time for actually gathering in community and actually looking underneath the surface of what's happening here, which is that Westerners come here, spend a lot of money on accommodation, a lot of money on events, drive up the prices of this area so that the local Mayan people literally cannot afford to be here. And in all honesty, most Westerners couldn't afford to live here either. And within that, there is a lot of spiritual bypassing. There is a lot of people who are not really willing to look at the depths of their shadows, who are not really willing to go deeper into the conversation around it, but instead will go and immerse themselves in another cacao ceremony run by a Westerner, when cacao is literally made and grown and fermented here on these lands. Guatemala has some of the best cacao that I have ever experienced, owned by Mayan indigenous women specifically, but also men. And they'll go and immerse themselves in another journey, in another medicine ceremony, in another yoga class, etc., etc. And then they'll go and buy their £3.50, $5 latte from the Western-owned bakery on the quote the main and only road in San Marcos, quirkily named the Hippie Highway. And in fact, someone posted in a local WhatsApp group here saying, is this particular shop open on the Hippie Highway? And a local Mayan Guatemalan man said, please call it by its original Quechua name. It's as if the Westerners have come here, they've taken over the place, bought all the land, built all their properties, charge extortionate prices for it, and forget that this land was actually Mayan, forget that this land holds ancient codes, ancient wisdom that we can actually learn from the Mayan people. But there is such a disconnect between the Mayans and the Westerners that it just feels like a really superficial, hedonistic playground for the wealthy to come and have a brilliant, beautiful time and then leave this place not particularly any better than how they found it. And to me, this is superficial. It's superficial spirituality. It's not the kind of spirituality that I really like to connect with. For me, spirituality goes a lot deeper, and everybody is, of course, on their own path, and it's not to judge because everybody is on their own journey. But to me, spirituality really means looking at your shadows. It really means having the difficult conversations. It really means being a human. It really means encompassing all parts of yourselves. Yes, the play. Yes, the fun. Yes, the ecstatic dance. Yes, the contact improv and the breathwork journey and the sauna and the drumming circle and the singing circle and the jumping in the lake and all of the beautiful things. But it also means, hey, when a community member is having a hard time, do you know about it? How are you going to support them? When a local Mayan person is drunk on the street, are you going to support the community by telling the police? Are you going to support the community by reporting it in the group? Are you going to support one another when the chips are down? Because this is humanness. This is part of the path to liberation, is understanding that yes, you are spiritual, and yes, you might be traveling into all these different dimensions and realms. And yes, we might be liberating ourselves from our ancestral stories, but we are still humans living on this earth. And if you are going to choose to live in a spiritual community and you're going to choose to have spiritual people around you, your discernment is going to be so important to choose the people who are actually going to be there for you, human to human. Not just because you enjoy going to an acro yoga class together or you enjoy dancing together on the dance floor once a week at ecstatic dance. It goes way beyond that. It goes into the depth. It goes into the shadows. It goes into the I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I witness you. How can I support you in your moment of need? What do you need from me to show up? How can you help me in my moment of need? How can you show up for me? And this depth of intimacy requires vulnerability. And not everybody is capable of being that vulnerable. Not everybody is capable of going to that depth. So instead, they hide behind the mask of spirituality. They dress like hippies. They look like hippies. They wear the right clothes. They say the right things. But inside, it's not authentic. It's not real. And I've been feeling that for the whole time we've been in Guatemala. And I haven't shared about it on Instagram because I was really just trying to work out where I stood in this land, how I felt. But I absolutely know with no question of a doubt that I'm so grateful for the ability to see, for the ability to see through the veil, for the ability to discern, for the ability to stand in my sovereignty and say, hang on a minute, you call yourself spiritual, but when the chips are down, are you actually there? Or are you just going to bypass? Are you actually available for the depth of vulnerability and the depth of intimacy and the depth of conversation that is required on this path? Or are you just going to go and immerse yourself in another yoga journey? You're just going to go and sing it out in the singing circle. All of these things are beautiful. Of course, we deserve to be frolicky and play and have fun and run around like fairies. Of course, we deserve that. It's our birthright to have a good time. But at what cost does that come? When Westerners gather in one place and they're having the most hedonistic, beautiful time at the cost of the local Mayans, at the cost of the culture, at the cost of the land itself, of the lake, which is highly polluted, then I don't think we can call this spirituality. I think we can call it a playground. And the women that I choose to work with on the liberated woman journey, in their ancestral healings through this deep journey of rebirthing, breath work, through light language, through reclaiming your sovereignty, for finding the truth of who you are, for the oracles, the seers, the mystics amongst you, we won't tolerate this kind of superficiality. It's just not something that we can put up with because we see straight through the veil. We see straight through it. And we don't want to be in Disneyland spirituality. I don't want to be in shamanic Disneyland. I want to be real, immersed in the earth with the real cultures, with the authenticity, with masks off, vulnerability on show for everyone to see, feel, witness, and hear. So if you're a woman who's on her path to liberation and you know that you are desiring a depth of connection and you know that you desire to be met in an intimate space whilst you are on this journey, then I am the healer, the woman, the oracle, the seer, the mystic, the breath worker. Remove all the titles. I am the energy and the frequency for you to go on this journey because I know how important it is to have that depth, to have that connection, to have that real sisterhood. And when women come and work with me one to one, we form friendships and we form sisterhood and we form connections that are so deep and so beautiful that I'm actually still in touch with the majority of my clients, even when they finish their journey with me. And they still come and sit in circles with me and still come back for top-up sessions, and they still want to know how my life is and how it's going, because that's the depth that we create here, because the work we're doing is not superficial, it is not shallow, it is deep, so deep. We are going into the depths of your soul to remove and alchemize and dispel so many stories that live in your body, in your cellular system, that have been passed down to you through your lineage, through your ancestry, from past lives. And I don't take this work lightly. I take this work very seriously. I take this work very sincerely. Because when you are liberated in your soul and in your being and in your body, you will pass that on to your legacy, to the people around you, your children, your partners, your communities, your sisters, your friends, your work colleagues, anyone that you meet in any interaction. When you are liberated in yourself, you give permission for them to be liberated, and it has a ripple effect. And just imagine how beautiful the world would be if every single woman came back to the truth of who they are, felt liberated in their body, felt liberated in their finances, felt liberated in their soul, felt liberated in their expression, felt liberated in their sensuality, felt liberated in their creativity, in their life force energy. Imagine what a beautiful, wholesome, nourishing world this would be to have mothers birthing children in that way, to have partners who love the masculine and help them on this path. Imagine what an incredible world we would have if we had leaders on the world stage operating from this frequency. Everything would be more peaceful, everything would be more wholesome, everything would be more loving. And that is the kind of world that I am devoted to creating. So if this has resonated with you and you're looking for depth and you're looking for an experience that is super cosmic, super magical, super powerful, and super alchemical, that's actually going to change your life in your reality, in your day to day, then I am the woman for you. So if you're interested, I've put all of my details in the show notes. You can book a one-off session with me for ancestral healing, for breath work, or for a light language activation. And you can also go on a deeper 8-month journey with me in my one-to-one container, The Liberated Woman. This is my highest touch mentorship. You get 2 sessions a month and Telegram support in between Monday to Friday, where you can send me voice notes and ask me questions. And I set you soul work to do in between your sessions so that you can actually integrate everything that you've gone through in your journey with me into your day-to-day life, so that you can start to see your outer reality shift as your inner world shifts. This is the magic. This is the alchemy. And I can't wait to welcome you in. You can also join my free Telegram group, Cycle Breakers. It's currently free until I make it a paid offering. So if you want to get in, now is a good time to get in. I'm also more intimate in those spaces, dropping in voice notes, transmissions, updates, and any events and workshops that I'm doing, I post in there first, as well as the podcast episodes. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Liberated Women podcast. If you like this episode, please like it, share it, put a review, put a comment, share it on your social media, and tag me at Shani.Ben-Aroya. It means the world to me when you do that, when you hear my voice, when you share it with other women who are on this path. Because if we are able to liberate ourselves, we can support other women to do the same. That is sacred sisterhood. I love you. I love you. I love you.